Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and once again it is time for my lifter Demi's vlog. And we got a bench press PR here. I don't remember the exact amount we have there, but he was happy with the fact that he got a PR. Felt good. On the other hand, deadlifting, on his max effort deadlift this week, he's like, man, this felt really heavy and grindy. And you know, that does happen. It's like that a lot of times with your lifters, especially when we're dealing with just overall recovery, because I do have him doing a lot of volume. You know, his volumes are relatively high right now because I'm trying to get him bigger. The upside, his deadlift has stalled a little right now, but it was previously his best lift. I will, of course, push it back up. And in the meantime, you know, we've seen a lot of squat and bench press PR. So his other two lifts, which were weaker, have gone up pretty consistently. We did get some deadlift PRs a while back, lifetime PRs, and then it's kind of stalled a bit. But again, nature of the game sometimes. You know, it's kind of funny. I tend to find, and this can be almost amusing, a lot of my conjugate lifters, they'll go through phases, and it will obviously depend on how much muscle they're gaining, to where their squat and their bench press will be going up, right? They'll be getting PRs, and then their deadlifts will stall a bit. And a lot of it's because usually we're really focusing on getting as big as possible sometimes. You know, it puts the energy into those things. And sometimes the deadlift can suffer till we get the neural drive sorted back out on the deadlift. And then I have lifters, similar programming, you know, depending upon what's going on, to where they'll hit deadlift PR after deadlift PR. They're like, my bench and squat aren't going up. So it's just funny, just my observations as a coach for my conjugate lifters. It tends to be a case of usually all three of their lifts aren't always going up at once. It tends to be the squat and the bench press are going up, or the deadlift's usually going up. You know, and some of it depends on individual programming. It depends on their fatigue management, you know, things like that. I find, again, in phases where I'm really pushing their volumes to, you know, as hard as possible to bring up weak points and things, that a lot of times that is exactly how it plays out. You know, the deadlift will sometimes suffer while the other two lifts go up. And then when I dial their volumes back a bit, and the muscle gain slows just a little while I'm letting them recover from it, then we'll start seeing the deadlift come up. You know, particularly if I push a little more max work on it, or any assistance work for it at all at that point, you'll start seeing the deadlift will start climbing. And then the other two will slow down a little bit, because now they've kind of gained a lot of muscle, and then the volumes are reduced for them to recover. It's just a balance, and I think that's the thing that people need to remember. You know, when they're novices, they're used to everything going up all the time. You know, they're used to everything going up all the time. And I find that the more advanced lifters get, and this is stuff I deal with personally, that, you know, in most cases, I'm only going to see 2 of my 3 lifts go up at any given time, right? It's going to be two out of the 3. And I see that a lot with clients. And there are exceptions. You know, I want you guys to keep that in mind too. I'm just saying this is very frequent. I see this the majority of the time. Now, you see it the majority of the time, but not always. I've had advanced lifters on conjugate who literally, over a 6-month period of time, just see a consistent improvement in all 3 big lifts, who are not noobs. You know, there's sometimes people with pretty decent strength bases already, right? You know what I mean, a good strength base, you know, 4 plus plate squat, 5 plate deadlifts, you know, so on. So you can see a lot of his supplemental work. We're working in JM presses now, right? We're working in those JM presses. He's working on the technique a little. We're trying to fix that. I feel like he's at a point where the JM press, we're now ready to really use it. We've run skull crushers and things. We've run a lot of band work to build his elbows up. Now I want to push those JM presses. Side note, and I've already corrected him on this, on the speed boxes, notice he's squatting against a flat side of the box. Don't do that. You can get more surface area if you put a corner between your feet that lets you be a little further from the box and without your hamstrings touching the box when you sit back. So when we're really trying to master the box squat, and you're not going to sit on like round plates, bumpers, stack, or whatever, use anything with a corner, any sort of box like that, you'll actually find you get the best technique if you put a corner between your feet. And again, it just has to do with the sitting back versus the surface area, right? It's that sitting back versus the surface area. Of course, then we're doing all the normal stuff that we have him do, which is what? Good mornings. I push good mornings hard for this lifter. He's good at them. That's one reason his deadlift is good. Although of particular note, we switched over to the safety bar because he was noticing a little bit of overuse. And again, the back gets hit more than the hamstrings with the safety bar. That is an observation of mine over the years as a coach who used a lot of good mornings, programmed a lot of good mornings with different pieces of equipment. Okay. It comes down to also possible not coincidence. We go over to the safety bar, hamstrings are getting a little less work, and what happens is deadlift starts feeling more difficult. So that's also another possibility to think of when the other lifts are going up, the deadlift is stalling, is something changed. And in this case, we needed to switch bars due to overuse. Hamstrings are getting less work than they previously were getting with that other bar. Okay? Until the safety bar gets caught back up and he gets strong enough to really start seeing hamstring development off of it again, instead of it being more back, the deadlift may stall. And it's because I feel like in his case, he really got a lot of those good mornings on that deadlift. Right? He really got a lot. And we don't have like a glute ham raise at the moment to bridge the gap. So that's the other thing I then look at as a coach. And this is why when we're looking at our lifts and we see certain lifts improving and others not improving or feeling like they're regressing a hair, you've also got to look at what's going on with our supplemental work. And something as simple as we changed a bar that puts a little less load on the hamstrings. Okay. Well, what do you have here? You have a tall lifter. He's over 6 foot. Conventional puller. Hamstrings for longer leg lifters tend to be the limiting factor on their deadlift. Not saying the other muscles don't matter, they do, but hamstrings can really be what makes or breaks you. So it's also a case of, hey, maybe your hamstrings have detrained a little bit. Also something worth considering. And this is why we have to look at training in its totality. This is why we don't always look at each individual thing. So why is my deadlift going down? Well, do we change bars on one of your biggest hamstring exercises, and that being a major weak link? But also I'm going to finish this up with just that box squat again so that people see what I'm talking about. So if you look at the box squat, people tend to get really close so that they don't miss the box. And then it makes it really easy to bump your hamstrings on the box when you sit way back, which can be a mental contact to not sit back as far. It can be a mental cue not to. So again, turning that box to where you've got a point between your feet so that you can get more surface area without your hamstrings touching the box with a nice wide stance. Okay? It's a little minor trick I've picked up over the years.